In this video, I will show you how West Ham made and spent 155 million. Later, we'll look at Mohamed Kudus, attacking midfielder that just yesterday scored a hat-trick in the Europa League, getting the money. All of that money came from just 4 player sales. The first sale of the season was Artur Masuaku to Besiktas for just 2 million euros. But it all really kicked off on the 15th of July when West Ham sold their club captain Declan Rice to Arsenal for a staggering 116 million. As a West Ham fan, I was sort of happy because, let's be real, that was a lot of money, and it would be enough to transform this team into an actual top 6 contender. But at the same time, he was our club captain. He did lead us to the first European trophy since I was born. Just 2 weeks ago, West Ham confirmed the sale of Gianluca Scamacca to Atalanta for 25 million. I was a little bit disappointed with that sale because it just ended up feeling as an expensive loan for Scamacca. He came here last year for 28.5 million and then we sold him for 25 this year. It just made no sense to me, and I was disappointed that Scamacca couldn't replicate his form from Sassuolo. Just 4 days later, it was announced Vlasic will be joining Torino for 12.8 million. I liked Vlasic, and it was just so disappointing we sold him for less than double the amount that we paid for him from CSKA. Apart from those 4 transfers, West Ham also let go of Manuel Lanzini and Flynn Downs on a free transfer to River Plate and Southampton respectively, getting us to that grand total of 155 million. Now, time to spend it. The first transfer was Edson Alvarez. He was announced as a hammer on the 10th of August, and his price tag of 38 million was a sign for things to come for West Ham. Alvarez is a strong defensive midfielder that can play as a center back. In the long term, I believe West Ham will use him for that exact role in the starting 11. As a replacement for aging Soucek. His debut ended the debut of the next player on this list when he came on as a sub against Chelsea in the 3-1 West Ham victory. The player he was subbed on for, James Ward-Prowse, became a hammer just 4 days later when he joined West Ham from Southampton for 35 million. With James Ward-Prowse, West Ham are hoping they found their deep creative midfielder and a free kick specialist that will enable smooth offensive transitions and provide key passes and assists for the Hammers this season. Just 3 days ago, Konstantinos Mavropanos joined for 20 million from Stuttgart, and this is so far the best transfer this season. And the fact that West Ham even considered Maguire at one point was highly offensive. I would rather West Ham start with 10 players than to start with Maguire at the back. I mean, don't get me wrong, he played well in his time at Leicester and in his first season for Manchester United, but since then his urge to self-sabotage is greater than John Terry's urge to look at other people's women. Other than that, West Ham promoted Divine Mubaba from the U21s team, and last season he scored 26 goals and had 4 assists in just 30 games across 3 competitions. It will definitely be interesting to see if he gets any game time and how he develops throughout the season. 2 more signings, I hope. Now I know West Ham have around 60 millions left from the player sales they made this season, but I do believe that West Ham have just a little bit more money to play with. So I'm hoping that West Ham will spend another 60 to 80 million on 2 new signings. The first one being Mohamed Kudus from Ajax for 50 million, that just last night scored a hat-trick against Ludogorets in the Europa League. Ajax is apparently asking around 50 million, but the latest offer West Ham sent was 41.5 million. I suspect they could accept it and we could be looking at Mohamed Kudus as a hammer in the coming days. After exploding last season for Ajax, Mohamed Kudus could provide something new to West Ham and could help take the pressure off of Lucas Paqueta. His 15 goal contributions last season attracted the attentions of Arsenal, Newcastle, Brighton and Chelsea. For the second player, I chose Hugo Ekitike, that West Ham are currently competing for Lyon and Everton. The price tag is somewhere between 20 and 35 million for Hugo Ekitike. He could be the Antonio replacement that West Ham have been looking for. They were wrong before with Scamacca, but I do believe Ekitike could provide us with something fresh and new. Ekitike could follow the example of of many French players that made their name in the Premier League. Apart from those two, West Ham are currently being heavily linked to three other players, those being Youssouf En-Nesyri, Jesse Lingard. Youssouf En-Nesyri could provide a more immediate impact for the Hammers, but I believe that it would be a shame to pay 32 million for Youssouf En-Nesyri when you could pay the same amount for Ekitike. I believe that he would just turn into another case of Vlasic, a player that would go on to do okay, but would then be sold for a loss a few seasons later. Jesse Lingard, I think he would be a good squad player if his wage demands are reasonable, but nothing more than that. Who do you think West Ham are gonna bring in this season? Starting 11 after 170 million. If West Ham signed Kudus and Ekitike, this is how I'd like the starting 11 to look like. Aureola on goal, Emerson and Kufal left back and right back, Mavropanos and Agard as center backs, Alvarez and Ward-Prowse as CDMs, with Paqueta in the middle, Bowen and Kudus on the wings, and I would still have Antonio as the starting striker, but give Ekitike regular game time starting from the bench for the first half of the season to give him time to adjust. Would that be enough for the Hammers? With this starting 11 and players like Benrahma, Soucek, Zuma and Ekitike on the bench, I believe that West Ham could aim for that top 6, top 7 finish this season. But if things fall into place, maybe a Leicester is in store.